Hello everyone, and welcome to the ANB Recaps channel. Today, we will be following along with series Solo Leveling. One day, on Jew Island in South Korea, a swarm of giant, mysterious ant-like monsters suddenly appeared. They took over the island, turning it into their nest. In response, South Korea mobilized numerous hunters in an effort to reclaim the land. On the island, a team of hunters devised a plan to lure the ants out of their nest and eliminate them. However, despite attacking with both physical and magical means, their efforts proved ineffective. The hunters were quickly overwhelmed and devoured by the monstrous creatures. Just as the situation seemed dire, a hunter arrived to rescue them. He swiftly knocked away a red ant attacking the team leader and cast a healing spell to treat their wounds. His name was Bongu, a healing mage. As the ants launched another attack, two of Bongu's allies arrived to assist. They effortlessly defeated the creatures, as they were among the strongest S-rank hunters. The red-haired hunter was named Yin-Ho, while the brown-haired one was Unuk. Soon after, a giant white ant, seemingly the leader, appeared and attacked them, but they managed to defeat it with ease. However, their victory was short-lived, as another swarm of similar ants emerged, forcing them to fight at full strength. Yin-Ho powered up, transforming into a Superon, while Unuk unleashed a barrage of lightning bolts to aid in the battle. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the island, another group of hunters was also facing off against a large number of ants. Among them was an S-rank hunter named Choi, who obliterated the red ants in front of him with a single strike. These events raised many questions. Where did these monsters come from? Why didn't the government use advanced modern weaponry instead of relying on hunters for close combat? The answer lay in history. Several decades ago, portals connecting to other space dimensions had suddenly appeared worldwide. Behind these gates were creatures impervious to humanity's conventional weapons. Along with these monsters, individuals with awakened special abilities, known as hunters, began to emerge. Depending on the level of magical power within their bodies, hunters were classified into 6 ranks: S, A, B, C, D, and E. Once awakened, a person's rank remained fixed and could not be developed further. In present-day Seoul, South Korea, a group of low-ranking hunters gathered in front of a dungeon gate. Being a hunter was a lucrative profession, but not everyone possessed the magical power required for it. Among them was a young man with numerous scars on his body, Sung Jin-Woo. As he arrived, everyone greeted him warmly. However, their kindness was not due to his strength. Rather, it was because any dungeon raid that included him was considered extremely easy. He was infamously known as the weakest hunter ever, so weak that even entering an E-rank gate often landed him in the hospital. Do-Hee, a fellow hunter, worried about Jin-Woo's safety. In a previous dungeon raid, the hunters had been much stronger than the dungeon itself, so they had opted not to hire a healing mage to save costs. As a result, when Jin-Woo was injured, there had been no one to heal him. However, he did not blame them, as he knew his injuries were due to his own weakness. Finally, the time came to raid the dungeon. The team leader, Sun Yoon, led the charge. While the other hunters possessed good equipment, Jin-Woo could only afford a basic knife with minimal magic power. His income was so low that this was all he could manage. Hunters earned their money by selling resources collected from dungeons. Strong monsters dropped magical stones that could be crafted into weapons and armor, enabling hunters to fight even more formidable creatures. Additionally, mana stones collected from dungeons were recognized by the government as a perfect green energy source. They were more efficient than hydro, wind, and geothermal energy, and did not pollute the environment like thermal power plants. As a result, hunters played a crucial role in society. Jin-Woo felt a sense of accomplishment after successfully defeating a goblin and collecting a magical stone. However, his carelessness led to him being attacked and seriously injured by another goblin. To make matters worse, the knife he had spent all his money on shattered. Fortunately, an older hunter came to his rescue, and Do-Hee quickly healed his wounds. When he regained consciousness, the team had already defeated the dungeon's boss. Frustrated, Do-Hee scolded him for his recklessness, warning him that if he continued this way, he would eventually lose his life in a dungeon. As the team harvested the loot, someone discovered a mysterious passageway, suggesting that it might be a 2-floor dungeon. According to Hunter Association regulations, they were required to return and report this finding to receive further instructions. However, some team members saw this as an opportunity for greater rewards and were reluctant to leave. They decided to vote on whether to proceed or report back. To everyone's surprise, the votes were tied, leaving Jin-Woo's vote as the deciding factor. Although he knew that venturing further was incredibly dangerous, he had a sick mother in the hospital and a younger sister preparing to start university the following year. Ultimately, he chose to continue, driven by his responsibility to provide for his family. Meanwhile, at the Hunter Association headquarters, a magical power assessment test was taking place. Once the results were revealed, those who demonstrated abilities were immediately recruited by various guilds. Higher-ranked individuals received more benefits. Elsewhere, a purse-snatching incident unfolded on the street. The two thieves believed they had escaped, but suddenly, a young woman appeared in their path. In the blink of an eye, she retrieved the purse and returned it to the victim, causing the thieves to stumble and fall. This woman was none other than Cha Hai-in, an S-rank hunter. Recognizing their idol, bystanders excitedly gathered, hoping to take pictures with her. Embarrassed by the attention, she swiftly leapt onto a nearby building and vanished from sight. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo felt guilty for making Do-hee continue when she had been hesitant. He feared she might be angry and unwilling to forgive him. However, to his surprise, she simply asked him to buy her dinner to make up for it. Finally, the team arrived at the gate to the second dungeon. They had never seen a dungeon entrance. With a door like this before, an overwhelming sense of danger filled the air, but the promise of rewards clouded their judgment. Ignoring the warnings of Chairman Go Gan-hee, who had previously stated that dungeons were unpredictable and that hunters gambled with their lives, they proceeded inside. As soon as they entered, flames ignited around them, illuminating massive stone statues. There were no visible monsters, yet an intense sense of unease lingered. Beneath their feet lay a magic circle, while an inscription in ancient text was carved onto a statue resembling the Grim Reaper. The text identified the place as the Karthan Temple and listed 3 commandments: worship God, praise God, have faith in God. Those who failed to follow these commandments would not survive. Suddenly, Do-hee grabbed Jin-Woo's sleeve in fear, claiming she had seen the crowned statue's eye move. He dismissed it as her imagination, until the massive doors slammed shut, locking them inside. Panic spread among the hunters. One hunter, who had opposed entering from the beginning, attempted to flee, but was instantly beheaded by the gatekeeper, Statue's axe. Jin-Woo was horrified. How could such powerful monsters exist in a D-rank gate? Recalling Do-hee's warning, he looked toward the largest statue. It had indeed moved, its gaze fixated on him. Having faced death countless times before, Jin-Woo's instincts screamed danger. He urgently warned everyone to get down, just as a statue resembling Superman fired 2 laser beams. The beams incinerated everything in their path, instantly reducing a teammate to ashes. Fortunately, Jin-Woo acted quickly, grabbing Do-hee and ducking just in time, saving both their lives. The horrifying deaths of their teammates threw the remaining hunters into a state of panic. The horrifying deaths of 2 group members sent the entire party into a panic. Their leader, S. Cheon, immediately ordered everyone to stay still to avoid provoking another attack. Fortunately, Jin-Woo sensed the danger and acted in time, saving everyone from certain death. Though he only had an instinctive feeling about the threat, his intervention proved crucial. Jin-Woo was shocked to see that one of the leader's arms had been burned off. Ji, who was very weak, required Jin-Woo's assistance in bandaging the leaders. Wound Data Jui, a healer-class hunter, typically participated only in simple raids due to her weak combat ability. Leader S. Cheon had taken part in B-rank dungeon raids a few times before, but the power of this boss was unlike anything he had encountered. It was likely an A-rank, or possibly even an S-rank entity. The stone tablet inside the temple bore an inscription that warned, "Those who do not follow the rules will not survive." This led Jin-Woo to speculate that the so-called god mentioned on the tablet might actually be the terrifying statue looming before them. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo's sister, Gina, was approached by a classmate who inquired about her brother. Gina simply described him as an E-rank hunter who frequently came home covered in injuries. Her classmate, who aspired to be a hunter herself, believed she could perform better. Back in the dungeon, leader S. Cheon preferred to find a way to escape rather than confront the boss head-on. However, one hunter, who had recently secured a ASS contract with a major guild, refused to accept the idea of dying there. Confident in his speed, he believed he could kill the entity before it attacked him. Unfortunately, the moment he moved, his entire body was reduced to dust in an instant. The mere flash of the statue's eyes held enough power to eliminate anyone instantly. Despite its immense strength, The statue did not attack indiscriminately like weaker monsters. Jin-Woo then asked leader Cheon about the first rule on the stone tablet. Cheon replied that it instructed them to show respect to the god. Realizing that the dungeon operated under its own set of rules, Jin-Woo decided to test his theory. Dripping with sweat, he slowly stood up. As soon as the statue's eyes flashed, he quickly bowed his head. To his relief, the light in its eyes extinguished, and nothing happened. Understanding the situation, he immediately instructed everyone to kneel before the statue. As they complied, the statue's eyes lost their glow, but its mouth twisted into a grotesque, eerie smile. One person hesitantly stood up and moved, but this time, the statue did not attack. Encouraged by this, the others also stood up, sighing in relief as they realized they had survived the first ordeal. However, Jin-Woo knew it wouldn't be that simple. Suddenly, the statue rose from its throne and began moving toward them. The second rule on the stone tablet was to praise the god. A member of the group, who had studied folklore, volunteered for the task. He knelt, clasped his hands, and began reciting sacred hymns. The statue's movement slowed, as if it was responding to his praise. However, Jin-Woo quickly noticed that something was off. The hymns were not the correct ones. Before anyone could react, the statue's eerie grin widened, and it mercilessly crushed the man under its foot, spreading blood across the floor. Panic ensued as some members of the group attempted to flee. Those who were too paralyzed by fear to move were also crushed underfoot. Jin-Woo grabbed Jui's hand and ran. A young man in a blue shirt, who had just returned to hunting to support his pregnant wife, hoped that distancing himself from the large statue would keep him safe. However, a soldier statue behind him swung its weapon, cutting him in half. At once, Jin-Woo desperately searched for a way to survive. Another hunter lost an arm and half his body to an attack. Jin-Woo then noticed that some statues held musical instruments. Shouting to the others, he instructed them to stand in front of those specific statues. As soon as they did, the statues began playing music, leaving them unharmed. Jin-Woo and Jui found a statue holding an instrument, but it refused to play. Realizing that each statue only allowed one person, Jin-Woo quickly ran to another. The new statue accepted him, and Jui was safe. Just as Jin-Woo believed he had escaped danger, he was suddenly impaled by a shield-wielding statue after stepping into an unprotected area. Jui screamed his name in anguish, but he had not yet succumbed to his injuries. Bleeding heavily, he desperately crawled towards safety. As the large statue's foot loomed over him, it came crashing down, leaving a long trail of blood behind. Miraculously, he reached a musical statue just in time, and it began to play. Once again, he had barely escaped death. However, Jui was horrified to see that Jin-Woo's leg had been severed. Desperate, she tried to treat him, but his wound wouldn't heal. Amidst the chaos, arguments broke out. The first person who had suggested moving deeper into the cave now blamed the leader for making poor decisions. Even leader Cheon admitted his mistake. Suddenly, the massive statue raised its arm, and the entire dungeon began to shake violently. From the center, an altar emerged from the ground. Jin-Woo recalled that according to mythology, altars were often used to offer treasures or sacrifices to deities. The third rule was to have faith in the deity. A desperate hunter interpreted this as a demand for sacrifice. He drew his sword, suggesting that the leader be offered as a sacrifice. Although the group was appalled by his suggestion, leader Cheon shockingly agreed to go alone. As he approached the altar, flames erupted behind him. Did they really need a sacrifice? Jin-Woo, despite his injuries, asked two people to help him onto the altar. The moment they stepped inside, 3 additional flames lit up. Time was running out. The gate had been open for nearly a week, and if left unchecked, the dungeon would soon break open, unleashing monsters into the world. Meanwhile, Gina visited her mother in the hospital, recounting her day at school. Her mother, however, remained silent with her eyes closed. Back in the dungeon, panic spread as one girl could no longer bear the sight of the statues and fled. An orange flame extinguished, and the gate began to close slightly. Jin-Woo realized the green flames were a countdown. If all extinguished, the gate would close entirely, trapping them forever. Another person gave in to fear and ran, causing another flame to disappear. With only 3 people left, leader Cheon instructed Jui and Jin-Woo to run, as they still had a future ahead of them. However, exhausted from treating Jin-Woo earlier, Jui could barely move. She insisted that the leader take Jin-Woo instead. The argument escalated until Jin-Woo silenced them, promising to take Jui out for a meal after this ordeal. Realizing they had no time left, the leader knocked Jui unconscious, carried her and ran. Left alone, Jin-Woo reflected on his past, his family, and his unyielding will to survive. He grabbed a sword, determined to take at least one monster down with him. The statues attacked, slicing off his arm and stabbing him through the neck. As his vision darkened, a message appeared before him. Hidden quest, courage of the weak. It informed him that he had qualified to become a player. If he refused, his heart would stop instantly. With no other choice, Jin-Woo pressed accept. Sung Jin-Woo suddenly woke up in a hospital bed, struggling to comprehend his survival. His legs were intact, and the stab wound in his chest had vanished, making him question whether everything had been just a dream. As he tried to process his thoughts, two individuals entered the room, the head of the Hunter Association's monitoring department. To his astonishment, they informed him that he had been in a coma for 3 days, following the recent dungeon raid. The aftermath of the raid had been severe. Chief An Sang-cheol had lost an arm and was forced to retire from hunting. Meanwhile, Zhu He, suffering from significant mental trauma, was also expected to quit being a hunter. Only 6 people had survived after discovering the double dungeon. Upon receiving the report, the White Tiger Guild, accompanied by an S-rank hunter, arrived at the scene. However, all they found was Jin-Woo lying unconscious, with no trace of the temple or the statues. The inexplicable circumstances puzzled the monitoring department, leading them to speculate that Jin-Woo might have undergone a second awakening. In the world of hunters, an individual's ability was determined at the moment of their awakening, and was believed to remain unchanged for life. However, there were rare cases where hunters reawakened, surpassing their limits to reach A or even S-rank status. Anxious to verify this possibility, Jin-Woo placed his hand on a magic power measuring device, hoping for a miraculous change. Unfortunately, his hopes were shattered when the results revealed that his stats were even lower than those of the IFE average E-rank hunter. This raised many questions. Why had the weakest hunter survived? And why had the double dungeon vanished without a trace? Strangely, only Jin-Woo could see a system panel displayed before him. At that moment, memories of the moments before his supposed death rushed back. He recalled being asked about qualifying to become a player. Soon after, his younger sister, Jin-Ah, visited him, scolding him for his reckless actions and urging him to value his life more. She even threatened to quit school and start working if he continued putting himself in danger. When Jin-Woo asked if she could see the system panel, she looked at him in confusion, assuming he was delirious, and left. Realizing that the system panel wasn't touch responsive, but instead voice activated, Jin-Woo hesitantly said, "Open mailbox." A notification immediately appeared, confirming that he had become a player. The system would now support his development, but failure to follow its instructions would result in penalties. Checking the daily quest, he found a set of strength training, tasks including push-ups, sit-ups, and running. However, still feeling weak, he decided to ignore it. Meanwhile, the head of the monitoring department reported to Chairman Go Gun-hee that Jin-Woo had not undergone a reawakening. The peculiar circumstances surrounding his survival and the disappearance of the dungeon made it an unprecedented case, prompting the chairman to call for further investigation. At the Hunter Guild headquarters, one of South Korea's top 5, the guild master assigned Vice Master Cha Hye-in the task of guiding an upcoming B-rank raid. She needed to train new recruits and provide field experience. Though she lacked confidence in her ability to instruct, the guild master reassured her that her skills made her more than capable. That evening, as citizens carried on with their daily routines, a gate suddenly materialized in the middle of a Xiao-dae road, blocking traffic. People could do nothing but wait for hunters to arrive and clear it. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo's daily quest time limit expired, and the punishment was immediately enforced. A violent tremor struck, knocking him to the ground. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a vast desert. Behind him, a grotesque venomous desert centipede emerged. His punishment task was clear: survive for 4 hours. Back at the hospital, nurses searched for Jin-Woo, but he was nowhere to be found. Unbeknownst to them, he was frantically running through the endless desert. It turned out there wasn't just one centipede, but an entire swarm hunting him. After 2 grueling hours, drenched in sweat and gasping for air, he continued to push forward. With only 10 seconds left until the punishment ended, a centipede lunged at him. At the very last moment, the countdown reached 0, and Jin-Woo was instantly transported back to his hospital room, lying on the floor and struggling to catch his breath. The next day, he had fully recovered and was discharged from the hospital. Upon hearing the news, Joo-hee brought a basket of flowers to visit him, but overheard the nurses whispering about his unusual behavior. Despite his previous severe injuries, he had been running daily, ignoring all attempts to stop him. Saddened, Joo-hee quietly left, feeling that Jin-Woo was now different from her, a person who was mentally broken and uncertain about continuing as a hunter. 4 days had passed since he awakened, and with each completed daily quest, Jin-Woo received 3 rewards. The first was a full recovery, instantly eliminating his fatigue. The second was attribute points that he could allocate as he wished, and he chose to increase his muscle strength. However, speaking to himself in the hospital courtyard about stat allocation earned him some strange looks from passers-by. The final reward was a random box. For days, the items he received were trivial: pens, band-aids, and other insignificant objects. But this time, he obtained a key, a teleportation key to a dungeon instance, usable at exit gate number 3 of the station. Meanwhile, the news broadcast reported on the current gate situations, akin to a weather forecast. Several new D and C rank gates had appeared, along with a B rank gate at the seaport that the Hunter Guild planned to raid. As Jin-Woo watched, memories of his past surfaced. 4 years ago, his mother had fallen into a mysterious condition known as eternal sleep, a disease that emerged after the appearance of gates, affecting only a small fraction of the population. Modern medicine had no cure, only life-sustaining treatment. At that time, Jin-Woo had been working as a construction laborer under a ruthless boss when he suddenly exhibited unusual symptoms. It was then that he realized he had awakened as a hunter. Overjoyed, he rushed home to tell his sister, believing that he could finally earn enough money to pay for their mother's medical expenses, no matter how dangerous the job was. However, his first raid was a nightmare. His team considered him a burden, kicked him out, and refused to share any rewards with him. Reflecting on those painful memories, he resolved to train his body even harder. Determined, Jin-Woo arrived at the station where the teleportation key could be used. Reassuring himself that he could always run away if things got dangerous, he inserted the key into the lock that appeared before him. The moment he stepped inside, the door locked behind him, sealing his only exit. Realizing he had no choice, but to defeat the dungeon boss, he braced himself. Unlike normal gates, this dungeon existed in a separate dimension, meaning no one outside could see or sense it. The eerie, ancient atmosphere unsettled him. Suddenly, 3 goblins appeared in front of him. Recalling how he had barely survived against a single goblin before, he knew he was in trouble. Despite his best efforts to dodge and defend himself, he was soon overwhelmed and knocked to the ground. Desperate, he managed to lunge at one goblin and stab it through the stomach, successfully killing it. Using sheer determination, he took down the remaining 2. Just as he began to feel a sense of accomplishment, a new threat emerged, a red-furred wolf with incredible speed. Within seconds, it shattered his weapon. It was a steel-fanged wolf. Paralyzed by fear, he found himself unable to move. The trauma from his previous dungeon encounter surged back. The wolf lunged at him, leaving a deep scratch across his face. Knowing that he had no healer to tend to his wounds, he swore not to let himself get hurt again. The beast charged at him, aiming straight for him. As Jin-Woo leaped and soared through the air to evade the attacks of the Red Wolf, he reminded himself that survival alone had been a challenge. Determined to stop trembling in fear, he steeled his resolve and launched himself forward, landing a powerful punch squarely on the wolf's face, sending it flying. This remarkable feat was the result of his significant investment in muscle strength. He continued to exchange blows with the creature, but its steel-like jaws proved to be much stronger than his fists. Realizing he could not rely solely on brute force, Jin-Woo had no choice but to dodge and retreat. Without at least a 2-person healing team, he knew that a weapon imbued with magic power was essential to combat the steel-fanged beast. Just as he was on the verge of being bitten, he swiftly opened his inventory and drew a sword, slicing the wolf in half. He had successfully eliminated the terrifying creature. To his astonishment, he suddenly possessed the esteemed sword of Xian's. Leader, a weapon worth $3 million, something he had never dreamed of affording. Even the wound on his face healed almost instantly. However, before he could fully grasp the situation, 2 more steel-fanged wolves appeared. Jin-Woo initially believed that having a weapon would guarantee his victory, but his sword became lodged deep in the ground, making it impossible to retrieve. As the wolves closed in, he finally managed to pull it free just in time. He struck at one of the wolves, but its powerful jaws clamped onto his weapon. Reacting swiftly, he delivered a forceful kick to its body and mustered all his strength to decapitate it. Witnessing this, the second wolf became frightened and fled. With this battle, Jin-Woo leveled up to level 2, increasing all his attribute points by 1. He realized that practical combat proved to be a more efficient way of leveling up compared to completing daily quests. The most noticeable improvement was in his muscle strength. Despite only having 32 points, his body felt significantly lighter. However, he observed something peculiar. The monsters he encountered only dropped items such as fangs, but did not yield any magic stones. This suggested that the dungeon and its creatures operated differently from those in reality. Interestingly, he discovered an item shop within the system, but at his current level, he could only sell items, not purchase them. He decided to sell the fang he had just obtained, receiving 20 gold in return. While contemplating his next move, a large pack of steel-fanged wolves emerged from the darkness. These were not yet the dungeon's bosses. Having already faced death once, Jin-Woo no longer hesitated. He charged forward, fearlessly confronting the wolf pack. He fought with precision, avoiding their bites and delivering decisive blows. Clutching his sword tightly, he was determined not to let fear overtake him again. As long as he remained alive, he vowed to find a way to grow stronger. If the system's rules were absurd, then he would simply comply with them to achieve his goal. After a relentless battle, Jin-Woo's level steadily increased, earning him the title of Wolf Slayer. His sword, however, was beginning to chip, and his body was growing exhausted from the sheer number of enemies he had faced. Among his inventory, he found a teleportation stone, an item that allowed him to exit the dungeon midway and return home without defeating the boss. Though this offered him an easy way out, it also meant forfeiting the chance to grow even stronger. Jin-Woo was torn between retreating and continuing his challenge, but ultimately, he resolved to press on. Meanwhile, Ji was walking when she unexpectedly received a call from the Hunter Association. They informed her that the gate from the other day was experiencing a dungeon break, and freelance hunters were being gathered to deal with the crisis. Since the location was close to her, Ji's expression suddenly turned serious. Back in the hidden dungeon, Jin-Woo continued to face a multitude of monsters. As his level increased, defeating them became easier. He noticed that the monsters' names displayed different colors, seemingly indicating their threat levels. White for weaker enemies, orange for those on par with him, and red for stronger foes. Interestingly, the steel-fanged wolves that had initially appeared red now displayed as white, signifying that he had become much stronger. Summoning all his remaining strength, he leapt onto the massive serpent, only to be thrown back down. Undeterred, he planted his broken sword into the creature's armor and clung on tightly. As Kasaka swung its massive jaws toward him, Jin-Woo discarded his weapon and used the muscle strength he had painstakingly increased to grasp the monster's head. With a final, desperate effort, he shattered its tough armor and crushed its neck, ending the battle. Defeating the Swamp King boosted Jin-Woo's level several times. As a reward, he received Kasaka's venomous fang, a shunk weapon, and a vial of venom, an A-rank item. With the boss defeated, the dungeon reverted to its original state, teleporting him back to the station. There, he found himself alone until a soldier arrived, ordering him to leave and scolding him for not listening to the news. However, upon noticing the weapon in Jin-Woo's hand, the soldier realized he was a hunter and led him to a nearby dungeon break. At the site, monsters were spilling out, and though the hunters had cleared most of them, the boss remained undefeated. The military and hunters were struggling to contain it, while civilians recklessly took photos, unaware of the danger. The team, hastily assembled to manage the crisis, lacked coordination and a high-ranking magic user. Most of the hunters were low-ranked, primarily E-rank, with a few D-rank fighters. The highest-ranking healer was B-rank, coincidentally Ji herself, but her fear rendered her ineffective. She was scolded by lower-ranked hunters for her inaction. As the battle reached its climax, Jin-Woo intervened. With immense force, he hurled his broken sword at the boss's head, breaking through its defenses. This allowed the other hunters to strike, swiftly defeating it. One of them, astonished by the sudden turn of events, questioned who had thrown the weapon. The soldier pointed toward Jin-Woo, but by the time they looked, he had already disappeared. From a distance, Ji silently watched him leave. At the hospital, the nurses were gossiping about a particular E-rank hunter who had recently undergone a dramatic transformation. While his face was only moderately attractive, his physique had become impressive due to his dedication to intense training. When he had first been admitted to the hospital, he was scrawny, but after rigorous muscle-building exercises, he now had a well-defined body. During patient visiting hours, one of the nurses blushed at the sight of Jin-Woo's toned figure. According to the schedule, he was being discharged that day. Embarrassed yet curious, the nurse shyly asked for his contact information under the pretense of needing it for follow-up medical results. Jin-Woo, thinking they might need to send him test results, agreed and exchanged contact details with her. In that morning, the news featured a special guest by Ek Yoon-ho, one of South Korea's 7 S-rank hunters. The program showcased the daily life of a hunter outside of dungeons, which primarily revolved around constant training. In a demonstration, Baek Yoon-ho casually shattered a massive rock with a single punch. This display was so routine that his staff didn't even flinch at the explosive sounds echoing through the training room. Meanwhile, Jin-ah, Jin-Woo's younger sister, was watching the program, but quickly turned off the TV, realizing it was almost time for school. Even she found it hard to believe how much her brother had changed, particularly his height, wondering if it was simply part of his natural growth. Jin-Woo had completed all his tasks for the day, except for his daily run, which he decided to do later. With stat points left from leveling up, he carefully allocated them between speed and intelligence. Just then, he received a call from his landlord, reminding him of his overdue rent. Scrolling through his phone, he searched for well-paying jobs, but as an E-rank hunter, he was not allowed to enter high-level gates. He considered getting reassessed to improve his rank, but knowing that his ability to level up would draw unwanted attention, he decided against it. Instead, he planned to jog to the construction site of his new mission, intending to complete his daily run task along the way. Missing even one daily mission would result in a penalty. Later that day, a group of hunters prepared to raid a C-rank dungeon. One of them recognized Jin-Woo as the weakest hunter in humanity. In reality, he had only been recruited to meet the required number of team members, as the strength of an E-rank hunter was deemed unnecessary. The dungeon required at least 8 participants, with more than half being E-rank hunters. Since Jin-Woo wouldn't be participating in combat, he wouldn't receive a share of the loot. However, the contract stated that he would be paid in full simply for filling the team's quota. His role was limited to carrying supplies and medicine. Jin-Woo was surprised to learn that the team didn't have a healer. Attack-oriented teams like this often struggled to recruit healers, so they ventured into dungeons without one. The contract even stated that the team wouldn't be responsible for any accidents inside the dungeon. A flashy young man then introduced himself as Yu Jin-ho, a 21-year-old E-rank hunter. His high-end equipment made it obvious that he came from a wealthy background. He reassured Jin-Woo, promising to protect him and ensure that his first C-rank dungeon experience was safe. Jin-ho then asked if Jin-Woo's gear was heavy, and told him not to be too formal since he was younger. As the team approached the dungeon, they noticed that the entrance was unusually large. Some doubted whether it was truly a C-rank dungeon, but the association had already investigated it twice and confirmed its rank. A dungeon's classification was determined by the magic power waves it emitted, not by the size of its gate. Dungeons, ranked B and above, were typically assigned to major guilds. Upon entering, the team was met with complete darkness, unlike typical dungeons illuminated by glowing stones. Jin-ho tried to recall everything he had learned about magical stones, mana ores, and dungeon environments. Strangely, they had walked a considerable distance without encountering any monsters. Sensing something off, Jin-Woo closed his eyes and focused. He picked up on a faint sound coming from above. Realizing that the monsters were likely insects, he quickly warned the others. Panic set in as the noise grew louder, but no one could determine the direction from which the creatures would emerge. Jin-Woo listened carefully and discovered that the source of the sound was a hole in the ceiling. Moments later, a massive swarm of ants descended upon them. The hunters swiftly switched to combat mode, shooting down the insects one by one. Yu Jin-ho stayed close to Jin-Woo, determined to protect him. The C-rank leader, who possessed a provocation skill, attracted the entire swarm toward himself, allowing the team to divide their efforts effectively. The mage concentrated on gathering mana before unleashing a fire spell, incinerating a large number of ants. The team had been working together for a long time and executed their strategy flawlessly, though the absence of a healer remained concerning. After the battle, the leader began distributing magic stones, dividing them into 7 portions. He also thanked Jin-Woo for detecting the swarm in advance. However, upon closer inspection, they noticed that some of the ants bore wounds unrelated to sword slashes or fire burns. It appeared as though something had gnawed on them. This discovery suggested that another, more powerful monster resided within the dungeon, one that saw the ants as mere food. Jin-Woo asked Jin-Ho about the cost of his sword and shield, and Jin-Ho confirmed that they were expensive. His father had bought him top-tier equipment to ensure a smooth first dungeon raid. Jin-Woo advised him to be cautious. As the team ventured deeper, the unusually long and empty path heightened Jin-Woo's suspicions. It was odd for such an experienced group to lack a healer, especially given their long-standing reputation. They soon found themselves surrounded by dying and already dead ants. It became evident that they needed to locate the boss monster in order to open the exit. The mage created a light source, making everyone feel slightly more at ease. Soon, they noticed massive spider webs ahead, signaling the boss room's proximity. Inside, they discovered an immense number of mana ores. Although not as valuable as magic stones, their sheer quantity meant they were worth billions. The leader was ecstatic, believing this wealth would strengthen their team significantly. He was eager to step out of his brother's shadow, though his teammates seemed hesitant to discuss it. Jin-Ho, well-versed in legal matters, asked to see Jin-Woo's contract. Upon reviewing it, he pointed out that the agreement only mentioned loot obtained from monsters, not mined mana ores. This meant that Jin-Woo was entitled to a share. The leader smiled and agreed, but insisted they first figure out how to transport the ores, as the portal would close once they defeated the boss. Unbeknownst to Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho, the leader had other plans. He and the others left the boss room, claiming they were retrieving equipment. However, once outside, the mage cast a spell to seal the entrance with rubble. Jin-Woo immediately recalled past warnings about hunters willing to kill for profit. Inside dungeons, there were no cameras, meaning anything could happen without consequence. Betrayed, Jin-Ho was in disbelief, unable to comprehend that they would kill for such a small amount of mana ores. Suddenly, the boss monster awakened. Realizing their predicament, Jin-Woo quickly shifted his mindset. Compared to his previous experiences, this challenge was nothing. Turning to Jin-Ho, he assured him that he would handle the dungeon boss. He then pulled out Kargalgan's Venom Fang from his inventory. After leaving 2 members behind as bait for the boss, the traders exited the dungeon. Their leader had planned to let the spider consume Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho. Once the spider fell asleep, they intended to haul the mana stones out, avoiding magic to reopen the blocked path, as doing so would wake the spider. The leader had observed a shortcut from the ceiling, which they could use to sneak in, just as Jin-Ho had suspected. If the boss did not fall asleep, they would abandon the mana stones and instead steal Jin-Ho's gear, which was worth hundreds of millions. This would still result in a substantial profit. The leader even researched Jin-Ho's background online, discovering his family connections and preparing to attend his funeral. Jin-Ho believed that Jin-Woo had no chance of defeating a C-rank boss alone. To do so, one would need to be at least a B-rank or a top-tier C-rank hunter. Even though Jin-Woo had reawakened and leveled up, he was still considered weak. The venomous fangs from the system's dungeon and the golem boss from the dungeon outbreak were only D-rank, whereas this spider was much stronger. However, Jin-Woo did not feel any pressure. He had grown so powerful that he no longer feared his opponents. Without hesitation, he dashed forward and delivered a powerful slash to the spider, shocking Jin-Ho. The spider retaliated, attacking with its powerful legs. Jin-Woo attempted to slash at its limbs, but its shell was too tough to be damaged. In contrast, the spider's kicks were so strong that they could punch through solid rock, meaning even a single hit could be fatal. Despite this, Jin-Woo continued his relentless assault, displaying agility that seemed beyond an E-rank hunter. Jin-Ho even suspected that Jin-Woo had cheated during his registration. Although rare, some hunters manipulated magic to register at lower ranks, many of whom were psychopaths with a penchant for killing. The mere thought of this possibility filled Jin-Ho with fear. No matter how much Jin-Woo fought, he could not penetrate the boss's defense, and his fatigue was mounting. His speed was beginning to decline. The special abilities of his short sword, paralysis and bleeding, were the key to defeating the spider. Just as he was about to thrust his sword into the spider's eye, it suddenly spat a stream of acid, corroding the ground. Fortunately, Jin-Woo reacted swiftly and dodged the attack. Despite the risk, he decided to use his skill that enhanced his speed. Swiftly maneuvering beneath the spider's belly, he launched himself from behind, gaining momentum from the cave walls to dive down. However, his sword struck the harder part of the spider's face. He quickly leapt away and continued his attack, slashing rapidly while dodging the creature's strikes. He knew he had to finish the fight quickly before he ran out of strength. Just as he was on the brink of exhaustion, his fatigue level spiked to 70, causing him to be thrown off by the spider. The creature raised its leg for a finishing blow, but at that moment, a system notification appeared. His complete recovery had been activated. Instantly, he dodged the fatal attack. With newfound strength, Jin-Woo leapt into the air, putting all his power into a final thrust that pierced the spider's eye. The creature was afflicted with paralysis and bleeding, giving him the perfect opportunity to strike. Delivering dozens of consecutive stabs, he finally defeated the dungeon boss. He realized that if he had not saved his daily mission reward for a complete recovery, he would have been doomed in that last move. Jin-Ho was overwhelmed by the scene, further convinced that Jin-Woo had cheated during registration. However, at that moment, survival was all that mattered. Jin-Ho, now fully acknowledging Jin-Woo's strength, obediently suggested that he keep all the boss's magic stones and even offered to carry his luggage. He also handed Jin-Woo water and mana ores to aid in his recovery. As they prepared to leave, the traitorous group returned, entering through the tunnel above. They had assumed that the spider was merely a large creature that would be easily taken down with Jin-Ho's expensive equipment. Their leader had also discovered that Jin-Ho was the son of a construction company president. Seizing an opportunity, he offered Jin-Ho a deal. If he killed Jin-Woo, he would be spared and allowed to join their group. The traitors believed that Jin-Ho would betray his companion due to their excessive threats. However, instead of yielding, Jin-Ho chose to stand by Jin-Woo and face them. Seeing this, the traitors were filled with murderous intent. Suddenly, an emergency quest notification appeared before Jin-Woo. He was ordered to kill the 6 people in front of him or face obliteration. The mage attacked first, launching a fire spell that slammed Jin-Woo into the wall. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, 3 female hunters were chatting. One belonged to the White Tiger Guild, while the other 2 were from the Hunter Guild. They had recently trained in an A-rank dungeon with Cha-Hai Inn and couldn't stop praising her immense strength, noting how she had effortlessly eliminated A-rank monsters. They also considered themselves fortunate to be in reputable guilds, as some guilds had abnormally high death rates, losing members in every raid. Unbeknownst to them, Jin-Woo was currently facing one such notorious guild. Back in the dungeon, Jin-Woo realized that he had neglected the quest's instructions. His body began to shut down, his heart slowing, while the system urged him to complete the task. He struggled with the morality of killing, but he had no choice if he wanted. To survive and grow stronger, he had to obey. A dark aura began to spread around him. One of the traitors casually slung an arm around Jin-Woo's shoulders, taunting him, only to be instantly decapitated. The others panicked. A moment ago, Jin-Woo's hands were empty, but now a sword appeared. His mind raced as he realized that his hands were now stained with human blood. But if he didn't kill, he would die. There was no turning back. 2 more traitors lunged at him simultaneously, but he deftly dodged and swiftly stabbed each one. They collapsed, succumbing to paralysis and bleeding. The crossbowman and the Adai mage tried to attack, but Jin-Woo easily evaded them and struck them down. The leader, finally understanding that Jin-Woo had defeated the dungeon boss, prepared to fight. He was a seasoned C-rank hunter, enhanced with a body as hard as steel. He believed that Jin-Woo, exhausted from the battle, would be no match for him. However, Jin-Woo had been leveling up continuously. Defeating the leader was now effortless. The traitor begged for mercy, promising to keep the events of the dungeon a secret and offering all his wealth. Jin-Woo remained unmoved. The leader then threatened him, boasting of his powerful younger brother. But before he could finish, Jin-Woo decapitated him, completing the emergency quest. The gruesome sight of human blood made Jin-Ho vomit uncontrollably. Later, the dungeon supervisor found the results suspicious. All the C-rank hunters were dead, while only a D-rank and an E-rank hunter had survived. However, upon noticing Jin-Ho's expensive, newly released equipment, she concluded that he had been the one to defeat the boss. As for Jin-Woo, his reward for the recent kill quest was the Killing Intent skill, allowing him to emit an aura that could drive enemies into panic. As the raid ended, Jin-Ho bowed in gratitude, thanking Jin-Woo for saving him. But Jin-Woo's thoughts were elsewhere. He was relieved that he had insisted his sister take an umbrella that morning, as it was now raining. in Chief Woo's office, where an employee presents a report about a C-rank dungeon. Surprisingly, the only survivors of the raid were D and E-rank hunters. Not only did they escape, but they also managed to defeat the dungeon boss. Among these survivors was none other than E-rank hunter Jin-Woo. This revelation piques Chief Woo's curiosity, prompting him to investigate further. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo returns home carrying fried chicken for his sister, which delights her. This act of generosity is uncharacteristic of him, as he is usually known for being thrifty and saving money. While enjoying a beer, he notices something unusual. The alcohol has no effect on him. It seems as though the system is nullifying its influence. Later that night, Jin-Woo heads to his room and discovers that he has unlocked a new skill called Blessing. Just then, his sister informs him that Jin-Ho has called. The next day, Jin-Woo meets Jin-Ho at a cafe, where the latter expresses his gratitude for having his life saved. Without wasting time, Jin-Ho quickly gets to the point. He wants to form his own attack team. Before Jin-Ho can fully explain, Jin-Woo bluntly rejects the idea. However, after Jin-Ho persists, Jin-Woo agrees to listen. Jin-Ho reveals his plan. He aims to acquire a guild master's license, which requires him to participate in at least 20 raid missions. He further explains that Yujin Corporation intends to establish a guild, where his father wants to hire an S-rank hunter and appoint his brother as vice president. Currently, there are only 7 S-rank hunters in the country, and the only unaffiliated one is Baek Yoon-ho, who has already retired. To gain his father's trust and secure the position of guildmaster, Jin-Ho needs to prove himself by leading raids with E-rank hunters like Jin-Woo. As an incentive, Jin-Ho offers Jin-Woo a staggering 30 billion won for participating in 19 C-rank missions. Despite the lucrative offer, Jin-Woo declines, considering the risk too great. As he gets up to leave, Jin-Ho makes a final attempt to convince him by promising to keep Jin-Woo's secret safe. The scene shifts to a corporate building, where a furious man learns about the survivors of the recent raid. His brother, Dong-suk, had perished in that very raid, and he suspects foul play. Enraged, he orders his assistant, Laura, to prepare for his departure, determined to seek revenge on Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho. Back at the park, Jin-Woo and his sister are seen exercising. Having already completed his daily quest, Jin-Woo notices something intriguing. The system continues to count his additional efforts beyond the required 10 kilometers. Curious about its limits, he pushes himself further. When he completes the daily quest twice, it transforms into a secret quest, granting him a special reward, a key to an S-rank dungeon. The reward for completing this dungeon is an elixir of life, capable of curing any health condition. Realizing the significance of this elixir, Jin-Woo smiles, knowing it could finally heal his mother. Determined, Jin-Woo uses the key to open the dungeon gate, but he questions whether he is strong enough to face the monsters within. As a precaution, he decides to use a teleportation stone to escape if things go awry. When the gate opens, a 3-headed giant dog, Hell's gatekeeper Cerberus, emerges. Without hesitation, Jin-Woo summons his dagger and prepares for battle. Charging at Cerberus with full speed, Jin-Woo attacks fiercely, but his strikes barely leave a scratch. Realizing the dire situation, he activates his murderous intent skill, which halves the opponent's strength. However, Cerberus counters with a powerful roar, nullifying the effect. The beast retaliates, tearing off one of Jin-Woo's arms and causing his health to plummet. To make matters worse, Cerberus activates its rage skill, doubling its strength and abilities. With its newfound power, the beast launches a devastating attack, sending Jin-Woo crashing into a building. Despite his severe injuries, Jin-Woo refuses to give up. He uses his full recovery skill and targets Cerberus's eyes, but his attacks remain ineffective. The monster toys with him, tossing him around like a mere plaything. The system repeatedly warns Jin-Woo that he is in critical condition. Realizing he must endure for 3 minutes until Cerberus's rage effect wears off, he contemplates using the teleportation stone as a last resort. However, before he can act, the beast strikes again, causing the stone to slip from his grasp. With his options dwindling, Jin-Woo quickly checks the system store and discovers that he can purchase healing potions. Without hesitation, he buys 3 bottles, each capable of restoring 100 health points. As Cerberus attacks again, Jin-Woo realizes that the rage effect has finally worn off. Seeing an opportunity, he charges at the beast at full speed, attacking relentlessly with his dagger. However, Cerberus remains formidable and nearly pushes Jin-Woo to the brink of death. Trapped in the monster's jaws, Jin-Woo refuses to surrender. With unwavering determination, he continues his relentless assault, aiming for Cerberus's eyes. The beast thrashes violently, but Jin-Woo persists. Finally, after a grueling battle, he defeats Cerberus. As a result, he levels up once more, and all his wounds heal completely. In addition to his victory, Jin-Woo receives another key, which he carefully stores. He also acquires the formula to create the elixir of life, though crafting it requires 3 specific ingredients. Understanding that entering the next gate at his current level would be suicidal, Jin-Woo resolves to return once he has grown stronger. At a hospital where Jin-Woo's mother is admitted, Jin-Woo is seen checking his system and discovers that the 3 items required to craft the elixir of life can only be found inside the castle gate. However, he realizes that to reach the castle, he needs to level up even further. The scene then shifts to Pepe Cafe, where Jin-Woo sits with Jin-Ho and finally agrees to his proposal. However, he sets one condition: the two of them must tackle C-rank dungeons alone. Jin-Ho objects, pointing out that C-rank dungeons typically require a minimum of 8 members. In response, Jin-Woo suggests they recruit just enough people to meet the quota, similar to what Dongwook had done previously. Jin-Ho hesitates, concerned about the risks, but Jin-Woo reassures him by framing their strategy as a strike team that will complete 19 operations without injuries. He believes this approach will impress Jin-Ho's father and earn his trust. Convinced by Jin-Woo's logic, Jin-Ho agrees to handle the recruitment and gate arrangements. Meanwhile, the focus shifts to Cha Hai-in, who is engaged in her training routine. A manager from Eugene Construction visits her, hoping to recruit her for their guild, as the company is preparing to establish its own guild. At the same time, Jin-Ho and his father are seen discussing the importance of dungeon minerals to modern equipment and the economy while driving in their car. Jin-Ho's father decides it is time for Eugene Construction to enter this field. Despite the monopoly held by major guilds such as the Hunter Guild, White Tiger Guild, Reaper Guild, Fame Guild, and Night Guild. Jin-Ho, however, understands the risks involved. Even if his brother hires an S-rank hunter, there is no guarantee they will follow orders. He explains that relying on his own capabilities will help mitigate such issues. The story then shifts back to Jin-Woo, who continues his daily training. However, he soon realizes that additional training no longer yields any rewards. As he walks through the city, he receives an emergency recruitment message on his phone. With no immediate tasks at hand, he decides to accept the request. Next, the episode focuses on Mr. Song, who is now teaching swordsmanship at a dojo. When he receives the same recruitment message, one of his disciples asks if he has retired. This question triggers memories of the terrifying temple incident, where he lost his arm. Despite his injury, Mr. Song remains determined to contribute to society. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim is seen spending time with his family when he too receives the recruitment message. His young daughter plays with him while his wife grows anxious about the danger. He reassures her, explaining that the Hunter Association usually assigns him easy raids, and that his last experience was an exception. In another part of the city, an important conversation unfolds between Choi and President Baek. They discuss the situation on Jeju Island, where a dungeon break has left the entire island under monster control, making it completely inaccessible. Choi expresses his determination to reclaim the island, but acknowledges that they need more strength to succeed. Shortly after, Chae Hai-in informs Guildmaster Choi about Eugene Construction's recruitment attempt, revealing that she declined their offer, further solidifying Choi's trust in her. The episode then turns to Joo-hee, who is still haunted by past traumas. She receives a call from her mother, urging her to come home. However, Joo-hee decides to give herself one more chance. At that very moment, she also receives the same quest request. Briefly, a mysterious man is seen making a cryptic request before. The scene transitions once again. This time, Mr. Song arrives at the dungeon site and immediately recognizes Jin-Woo. He is shocked by how much Jin-Woo has changed in just a few months, a transformation he never expected. As the team gathers for the raid, Jin-Woo reunites with familiar faces from the very first season's raid, including Joo-hee, Mr. Kim, and Mr. Kang. Both Kim and Kang avoid making eye contact with Jin-Woo, burdened by guilt for abandoning him during their previous raid. On the other hand, Joo-hee is overjoyed to see him again. Suddenly, a car pulls up, and a group of prisoners steps out. These individuals, brought by Kong Taishik as substitutes for hunters, behave rudely toward Yujin. The prisoners are participating in the raid as a means to reduce their sentences. However, there is little cause for concern, as Kong Taishik, a B-rank hunter, will be accompanying them and is confident in his ability to keep them under control, even in the worst-case scenario. Despite this, Jin-Woo senses danger and warns Ju-hee not to enter the dungeon, but she insists on going. Jin-Woo, too, is ready for the challenge. Before the team sets off, Mr. Song once again assumes his role as team captain. He takes a moment to apologize to everyone for the past incident, where 7 people lost their lives under his leadership. With determination and unease filling their minds, the group embarks on their journey toward the dungeon. Mr. Song and his team found themselves inside a dungeon where a group of prisoners was battling goblins. The prisoners effortlessly defeated the goblins, displaying their combat skills. Meanwhile, Mr. Song had grown significantly stronger, and for Jin-Woo, these battles had become mere child's play. Observing Jin-Woo's progress, Mr. Song was amazed at how far he had come. As the group advanced, they reached a point where the path split into 3. Taishik suggested that he take one path with the prisoners, while the rest of the team split into smaller groups to explore the remaining routes. He instructed them to notify him immediately if they found the dungeon boss. However, Jin-Woo, utilizing his perception skill, had already determined which path led to the monster. He requested that Mr. Song and Jae follow him down the correct route. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim and Mr. Kang prepared to explore another path. Before parting ways, Taishik cast a suspicious smile at Jin-Woo, which left him feeling uneasy. As they walked, Mr. Kim and Mr. Kang discussed their intention to apologize to Jin-Woo after the raid for abandoning him during a previous one. Meanwhile, on the prisoner's path, they continued to eliminate goblins effortlessly. However, their thirst for violence remained unsatisfied. Taishik, observing them, questioned whether killing humans would be just as easy for them. The prisoners responded indifferently, stating that to them there was no distinction. At this point, a flashback revealed a mysterious man from the previous episode who had hired Taishik to kill the prisoners. These men had assaulted the man's daughter, which ultimately drove her to take her own life. Knowing that the prisoners were soon to be released, the grieving father gave Taishik all his savings, ensuring they would never leave the dungeon alive. Scene then shifted back to Mr. Kim and Mr. Kang, who stumbled upon Taishik standing over the lifeless bodies of 2 prisoners while strangling a third. Mr. Kang attempted to intervene, but before he could act, Taishik coldly remarked that the third path led directly to the dungeon boss, saving him the trouble of further searching. Without hesitation, he slit the third prisoner's throat. Realizing that Mr. Kim and Mr. Kang had witnessed his actions, Taishik concluded that he had no choice but to eliminate them as well. Meanwhile, Jin-Woo recalled a past encounter with Taishik at the hospital. Suddenly, screams echoed through the dungeon, prompting him to rush back to the scene. Upon arrival, he found the prisoners dead and discovered that Mr. Kang had also been killed. Mr. Kim lay on the ground, severely wounded and covered in blood. Jae, frozen in shock, was unable to react. Jin-Woo quickly snapped at her to heal Mr. Kim, while Mr. Song assessed the situation, realizing that these deaths were not the work of a monster. Despite Jae's efforts, Mr. Kim, knowing he would not survive, stopped her and asked Jin-Woo not to blame her. With his final breath, he sought forgiveness before succumbing to his wounds. Overcome with emotion, Jin-Woo pleaded with Mr. Kim to hold on, reminding him of his family. However, it was too late. Just then, Taishik appeared from the shadows and launched an attack. Jin-Woo swiftly blocked him. Taishik admitted to killing the prisoners and revealed that since Mr. Kim and Mr. Kang had discovered his secret, he planned to fabricate a story that would frame the prisoners. He intended to claim that they had ambushed and killed everyone while attempting to escape, leaving him as the sole survivor. Mr. Song warned Jin-Woo that he would not be able to defeat Taishik alone and prepared to take on the fight himself. He picked up Mr. Kang's sword and instructed Jae to cast a strength spell on him. Being an assassin-type hunter, Taishik had weak defenses but unmatched speed. Despite Mr. Song's strength, he sustained injuries from Taishik's swift attacks. Jae quickly healed him, but Taishik recognized her as a threat and set his sights on her. However, Mr. Song intervened, reminding Taishik to focus on his opponent. Nevertheless, Taishik moved at incredible speed and managed to injure Mr. Song again. Jae, overwhelmed with panic, found herself unable to heal him any further as Taishik advanced toward her, taunting her inability to protect her allies. He prepared to land a final blow on Mr. Song with a powerful magic flame attack. To his surprise, Mr. Song narrowly avoided it. Taishik had anticipated this move and dodged accordingly. Just as he prepared to strike again, Jin-Woo stepped in between them, shocking him. Realizing Jin-Woo's immense strength, Taishik deduced that he was concealing his abilities and could not possibly be a false ranker. If his team knew him well, then it could only mean one thing. Jin-Woo had undergone a second awakening. Both Mr. Song and Jae were left in awe. Taishik recalled their previous encounter at the hospital and was stunned by how much Jin-Woo had changed, both in appearance and demeanor. Jin-Woo questioned Taishik about his actions, and Taishik justified them by claiming he was following the victim's father's orders. Jin-Woo countered, pointing out that he could have executed Mr. Kang and Mr. Kim quickly, but instead chose to torment them, indicating that he had enjoyed it. It was revealed that despite receiving multiple offers from high-ranking guilds, Taishik had rejected them. Though he was a B-rank hunter, he preferred killing humans over monsters, finding greater satisfaction in their suffering. As the fight ensued, Jin-Woo and Taishik engaged in a high-speed battle, their movements evenly matched. Jin-Woo, noticing Taishik's bloodthirsty nature, remarked that the system had taken notice and issued him a quest to eliminate him. At full speed, Jin-Woo managed to wound Taishik with his dagger, which inflicted a poisonous effect that caused his face to decay. However, Taishik still had one last skill, stealth mode, which rendered him invisible. He used it to launch a series of attacks on Jin-Woo. Threatening Jae and Mr. Song, he promised they would be his next targets. But Jin-Woo, unfazed, responded confidently, questioning whether Taishik truly believed he had won. To Taishik's disbelief, Jin-Woo quickly recovered his injuries, proving that a healer could also fight like an assassin. As Taishik launched another stealth attack, Jin-Woo effortlessly blocked all his moves. Realizing his attacks were ineffective, Taishik assumed his murderous intent was betraying him. However, Jin-Woo activated his murderous intent skill and delivered a fatal blow, driving his dagger deep into Taishik's chest. Before taking his final breath, Taishik asked Jin-Woo who he really was, as he had never encountered a hunter like him before. Jin-Woo simply replied that he was still discovering that himself, but assured Taishik of one thing: he only grew stronger with each battle. With Taishik's death, Jin-Woo acquired his stealth mode skill. Mr. Song and Jae expressed their gratitude to Jin-Woo for saving their lives. Jin-Woo instructed them to leave the dungeon while he stayed behind to face the dungeon boss alone. Meanwhile, Manager Woo was in shock upon hearing of Taishik's defeat. Realizing his failure in overseeing Taishik's actions, he struggled to process the situation. Mr. Song, understanding Jin-Woo's desire to keep his true strength a secret, respected his decision and left. However, he was clearly preparing for his own future reckoning with a conversation between Jae and Jin-Woo. Jae mentioned that she was planning to retire from the Hunter Association and return to her hometown. She extended an invitation to Jin-Woo, suggesting that if he ever passed through, she would be happy to show him around. Meanwhile, Woo warned Jin-Woo about Dong-Soo, the younger brother of the hunter who had been killed earlier. Woo explained that Dong-Soo was now targeting both Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho. He advised Jin-Woo to leave the country if he wanted to stay alive. Realizing that an S-rank hunter was after him, Jin-Woo understood that the law was powerless against hunters of such a high rank. Monsters feared them as well. This realization only strengthened his resolve to grow stronger, giving him an even greater reason to push himself beyond his limits. The scene then shifted to Jin-Ho, who had assembled a strike team primarily consisting of injured or intoxicated members. Jin-Ho explained that their team was unique and emphasized the necessity of having at least 8 members for a C-rank dungeon raid. However, Jin-Woo instructed the team to wait outside, deciding that only he and Jin-Ho would enter the dungeon. Once inside, Jin-Woo broke the stealth stone and acquired the stealth mode skill. Meanwhile, Jin-Ho prepared himself with new gear, but it proved to be too heavy. Even Jin-Woo's touch caused Jin-Ho to lose balance and fall. Jin-Woo advised him to remove the gear, which confused the rest of the team. The team doubted their ability to clear the dungeon, questioning how an E-rank and a D-rank hunter could possibly defeat a C-rank dungeon. They estimated that completing the raid would take at least 2 hours. However, to their shock, Jin-Woo and Jin-Ho managed to defeat the dungeon boss in a remarkably short time. After their success, they immediately proceeded to the next gate location. The team, still in disbelief, watched as the duo continued their swift progress. Jin-Ho seized the moment to motivate them, asking whether they would really let such an opportunity slip away, especially when they had the chance to earn 9 million in a single day. He revealed that he was offering 3 million to each of them for completing the raid. As expected, Jin-Woo effortlessly defeated the monsters, while Jin-Ho focused on gathering resources. Once they had collected everything, they faced the boss and completed the raid successfully. Over the following days, Jin-Woo continued leveling up by completing C-rank missions, gradually becoming stronger. Along the way, he acquired new skills, such as advanced dagger wielding and fatal strike. As he assessed his progress, he began to wonder whether he was ready to challenge the castle. Though he felt he was somewhere between a B rank and an A rank, he remained uncertain. Just then, he received a system message notifying him that he had reached the required level. This raised the question, should he change his quest? The scene transitioned to the White Tiger Guild, where news broke that Yugen Corporation had been purchasing C-rank gates at double the usual rate. Manager An grew suspicious, suspecting that Jin-Woo's Hunter Awakening was the reason behind this unusual activity. His suspicion deepened when he considered Jin-Woo's survival through three major incidents: the double dungeon, the Dongsuk incident, and the Tashik murder spree. Upon arriving at the dungeon, he noticed Jin-Ho's Hunter team resting outside, further fueling his suspicions. Deciding to investigate, An left the scene to follow Jin-Woo. Later that night, Jin-Woo became aware that someone was tailing him. It turned out to be manager An and his assistant. An introduced himself and extended an offer to Jin-Woo, an opportunity to join the White Tiger Guild. He promised double the reward compared to Yugen Corporation's offer, assuming that, as an E-rank hunter, Jin-Woo would readily accept. However, Jin-Woo instead inquired about the current valuation of the White Tiger Guild. When An disclosed that it was worth 50 billion, Jin-Woo casually mentioned that Yugen Corporation had only offered 30 billion, implying that 50 billion should be the minimum consideration. Shocked, An attempted to continue the conversation, but Jin-Woo abruptly declined the offer and walked away. As he left, he asked how An had learned so much about him. Activating his stealth mode, Jin-Woo sneaked back to eavesdrop on their discussion. During the conversation, An admitted that he had grown suspicious of Jin-Woo after witnessing his extraordinary skills, given that Yugen Corporation had been aggressively purchasing C-rank gates. However, An assured his assistant that he had no intention of exposing Jin-Woo's secret. He insisted that they would keep the matter confidential. Sensing an opportunity, Jin-Woo decided to sell 3 C-rank gates to An for 200 million each. Later, An realized that he had been outmaneuvered, as only 3 C-rank gates had been sold. However, for the time being, he was content with securing contact with Jin-Woo. The episode concluded with Jin-Woo heading to another location, with Jin-Woo accepting a new job request that leads him to an unfamiliar location. This request became available once he reached level 40. Using a special key, he unlocks a gate and steps into a mysterious new area. Almost immediately, the system informs him of a critical rule. He cannot use full recovery or healing potions in this dungeon. As Jin-Woo ventures deeper, he encounters a formidable opponent, an armor-clad monster of the same level as him. Without hesitation, he launches a full-speed dash attack, but to his surprise, it has no effect on the enemy. The armored knight retaliates with powerful strikes, forcing Jin-Woo to use his fatal strike skill. However, even this powerful move fails to inflict any damage. Realizing that brute force alone will not be enough, he taps into his full strength, grabs the metal knight, and tears it apart with sheer force. Just as he catches his breath, more knights appear, stronger and greater in number. Some even wield stealth and magical abilities, making the battle significantly more challenging. Despite his growing exhaustion, Jin-Woo systematically defeats them all. After the intense fight, Jin-Woo collects the fallen knight's gear, discovering that the items grant him incredible advantages, specifically invisibility and unrestricted movement. With this newfound power, he prepares to advance to the next stage. As he approaches another gate, a chilling breeze sends shivers down his spine. He steps into a grand throne room, where he comes face to face with the dungeon boss, Igris the Blood Red, a towering knight clad in crimson armor. Igris wastes no time and immediately charges at Jin-Woo with blinding speed, swinging his massive sword with terrifying force. A single strike from the blade slices through a massive pillar as though it were paper. Jin-Woo narrowly dodges, quickly realizing the immense gap in their strength. When he retaliates, his dagger barely leaves a scratch on Igris. In terms of speed, they appear evenly matched, but Igris's raw strength is far superior. Understanding that brute force alone won't suffice, Jin-Woo makes a surprising decision. He abandons his dagger. In an unexpected move, Igris also discards his weapon, opting instead for hand-to-hand combat. However, this only makes him faster and deadlier. The Red Knight unleashes an unrelenting barrage of punches, each strike hitting harder than the last. Struggling to keep up, Jin-Woo shifts his strategy, focusing on speed and precision. He manages to land a kick to Igris's neck, briefly stunning him. However, Igris quickly recovers and counters with an even more ferocious assault, pushing Jin-Woo to his absolute limits. As Igris prepares for a final, decisive blow, Jin-Woo makes a desperate move. He catches Igris's sword with his bare hands. Summoning his dagger once more, he thrusts it into Igris's eye, temporarily blinding him. When the Red Knight attempts to disarm Jin-Woo, the hunter swiftly counters, landing a decisive strike to Igris's throat. With that, the mighty dungeon boss is finally defeated. Though victorious, Jin-Woo acknowledges that Igris was far superior. In skill, experience, and strength, a single mistake could have cost him his life. As a reward for completing this deadly mission, Jin-Woo receives 4 incredible prizes. 1.5 million gold, Igris's helmet, an S-rank item, a runestone, and an instant teleportation stone. However, before he can catch his breath, he suddenly finds himself surrounded by numerous gates opening all at once, signaling the start of a new challenge, one where survival is the key. To his shock, there is no time limit for this trial. From these gates, countless knights emerge, their sheer numbers overwhelming. Despite the odds, Jin-Woo remains unfazed, smirking with confidence as he declares that taking them down won't be difficult. He activates stealth mode to prolong his survival, blending into the shadows to avoid detection. However, something unexpected happens. His stealth ability is completely nullified. Undeterred, he attempts to use his murderous intent skill, designed to intimidate and incapacitate enemies. Yet this too proves ineffective. Only 5 minutes into the trial, Jin-Woo already finds himself struggling to stay ahead. Realizing that escape may be his only option, he decides to use his instant teleportation stone. Just as he prepares to activate it, a knight launches a surprise attack, forcing him to dodge. In the chaos, the teleportation stone slips from his, grasp and is lost. With that shocking turn of events, the episode ends, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats. What will Jin-Woo do now that his escape plan has failed? Jin-Woo trapped in a dungeon, completely cornered and facing an imminent threat. To make matters worse, he realizes that he has lost his teleportation stone, leaving him with no means of escape. With no other option, he braces himself for the battle of his life. As relentless waves of knights attack him, Jin-Woo gradually becomes exhausted, pushing himself to his absolute limits. Just as he teeters on the brink of death, an unexpected turn of events occurs. He has yet to complete his daily quest. Due to this, the system automatically teleports him to the penalty zone. In this new environment, Jin-Woo swiftly recovers by utilizing potions from the store. However, his relief is short-lived, as he soon finds himself surrounded by giant centipede-like monsters, creatures that match his current level. Undeterred, he engages them in battle and successfully eliminates them one by one. With 10 minutes remaining, Jin-Woo takes the opportunity to strategize and prepare. He purchases the Night Killer dagger from the store and unlocks a new ability, Ruler's Hand, which grants him the power to manipulate objects without physically touching them, similar to how Igris once did. Fully equipped and ready, Jin-Woo returns to the dungeon for a rematch. This time, the tide of battle shifts in his favor. Armed with his new dagger, he effortlessly slashes through the knights. However, he soon notices that magician knights are summoning reinforcements through magical gates. Recognizing the urgency, he swiftly eliminates one of the magicians, shutting down its gate in the process. Yet, the remaining magicians retaliate by summoning a giant golem. As the golem attacks, Jin-Woo skillfully dodges its powerful strikes while simultaneously taking down the remaining summoners. Once the magicians are defeated, he turns his full attention to the golem, ultimately destroying it with a decisive strike. With the dungeon now cleared, Jin-Woo successfully completes his quest and is rewarded with an extraordinary new ability, Shadow Extraction. This newfound skill allows him to summon and command the shadows of defeated enemies as his loyal servants. At this moment, the system officially changes Jin-Woo's class to Necromancer, a magical class specializing in summoning undead monsters. Though initially unexpected, he embraces this transformation, believing that the system's choices are intentional. Furthermore, as a necromancer, he no longer has to fight alone alone. His shadow army will grow stronger alongside him. Accepting this new path, he earns bonus points and ascends to the rank of Shadow Monarch. In a profound moment, Jin-Woo senses the lingering pain within the corpses of the fallen knights. The system prompts him to give a command, and with authority, he declares, "Arise!" In response, shadows rise from the corpses, becoming his loyal Shadow Knights. Through this ability, he gains 2 additional skills, Shadow Extraction and Shadow Storage, both of which have certain limitations. Among the fallen corpses, Jin-Woo sets his sights on the Red Knight commander, Igris, hoping to extract his shadow. However, his first attempt fails, as the success of extraction depends on the opponent's strength and the time elapsed since their death. Refusing to give up, he continues trying. In his final attempt, Jin-Woo speaks directly to the Red Knight, questioning how long he intends to guard an empty throne. He asks whether Igris is waiting for a king who will never return, and urges him to find a purpose worthy of his strength by serving under him instead. Moved by Jin-Woo's unwavering resolve, the Red Knight commander Igris responds to his call. His shadow rises, officially becoming a part of Jin-Woo's growing army. Honoring Igris's formidable strength, Jin-Woo decides to keep his name. With that, Season 1 of Solo Leveling concludes on an epic note. Jin-Woo's journey has only just begun, and the world must now prepare for the rise of the Shadow Monarch. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated as we venture into Season 2. Until next time, keep leveling up.